4 missile salvos. 40 minutes. Central Tel Aviv. Not one attack. Not two. 4 coordinated waves, back to back, designed to drain every interceptor battery in Israel before the last warhead arrived. And the warning systems? In parts of the city, they never activated at all. A warhead packed with 100 kilograms of high explosive detonated between apartment buildings in the heart of Tel Aviv. 6 people pulled from rubble. A residential block collapsed. Rescue crews still searching. Israeli army radio confirmed it. Sirens shredded the night. Civilians ran. But here's what the headlines aren't telling you. This wasn't random. This wasn't even surprising, to Iran. This was with 26 days. 0 pauses. Since February 28, 2026, the day the United States and Israel launched coordinated strikes on Iran and killed Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei inside his own compound in Tehran, Iran has not stopped firing. Not for a single day. Operation True Promise 4. A rolling bombardment averaging more than 3 separate salvos every 24 hours. And roughly 40% of all that fire is aimed at one place. Greater Tel Aviv. 4 million people. But Iran isn't just throwing missiles. They're running a system. And that system has a weapon at its center that changed this war the moment it was fired. It's called the Sejjil A2. And the reason it matters comes down to one thing: solid fuel. It is what that means. Older Iranian missiles run on liquid fuel. That fuel has to be pumped in before launch. That process takes several minutes. And those minutes? That's your window. That's when you kill it on the ground. The Sejjil removes that window entirely. It rolls out of a mobile launcher and fires. Almost immediately. But that's not even the dangerous part. Analysts call it the dancing missile. Because its flight path doesn't follow a clean curve. During re-entry, it shifts. It adjusts. It's specifically designed to defeat Israel's Arrow A3 and David's Sling tracking algorithms. 18 meters tall. 23 tons at launch, 5 to 6 times heavier than Iran's Fatah hypersonic system. It can carry a 1.5-ton warhead to any target in Israel. Every square meter. Inside the envelope. And during Wave 54, the IRGC paired it with 4 other missile types, all arriving inside the same overlapping engagement window. Different speeds. Different altitudes. Different trajectories. One defense layer can't catch everything. That's the point. Now here's what most people completely missed while watching the apartment strikes. Ballistic missiles struck the vicinity of the Orok Rabin power station near Hadera, 45 kilometers north of Tel Aviv. This is not just any power plant. This is the single largest electricity generation facility in Israel. 2,590 megawatts. Approximately 20% of the entire country's electricity output flowing through one location. The result? Widespread blackouts across Tel Aviv suburbs. Entire neighborhoods went dark. Footage showed streets with no lights, no signals, nothing. Then Iran hit the Bazan Group oil refineries in Haifa Bay, Israel's primary refining complex. And they'd already hit those same refineries in earlier waves. This isn't random targeting. This is pressure testing. Repeated strikes on the same energy nodes, measuring how fast Israel can repair, how long its defenses can hold. Iran's energy minister made their doctrine explicit in a public statement. Iran generates power across more than 150 decentralized plants nationwide. Israel concentrates theirs in a handful of facilities, what he called centralized and very vulnerable. Then the IRGC added 4 words that function as a war policy. If you hit electricity, we hit electricity. One successful strike. 20% of national capacity, gone. But the energy grid isn't even the most disturbing part of what Iran announced this week. On March 24, the IRGC's intelligence unit published a statement. Israeli civilian shelters are now legitimate military targets. Not a vague warning. A published operational declaration, claiming Iran holds the blueprints, the GPS coordinates, and the structural specifications of Israel's entire shelter network, including the reinforced safe rooms built into residential buildings, 20 to 30 centimeter concrete walls, blast-resistant steel doors. They say they have all of it. And this isn't the first time those shelters have been reached. On March 1st, an Iranian missile punched through two interceptors and struck a communal shelter inside a synagogue in Beit Shemesh. 18 miles from Jerusalem. 9 civilians died. 49 were injured. The deadliest single strike of the entire war. 2 weeks later, cluster munition warheads hit Ramat Gan, just east of Tel Aviv. A couple in their 70s were killed. They were found just outside their safe room. They almost made it. And on March 23, nearly 200 people were injured in strikes near Israel's Negev nuclear research area. Israeli military spokesperson Brigadier General Efi Difrin confirmed publicly that David's Sling activated and missed. His words, on record, "Our defense is activated. They failed to intercept." 180 people paid for that failure. When the IRGC says it will target shelters, it is not posturing. It is a statement backed by demonstrated capability. And now the financial math. Because this is where the arithmetic turns catastrophic. One Iranian ballistic missile costs between $200,000 and $500,000 to build. One Arrow A3 interceptor costs between $2 and $3 million per shot. David's Sling runs approximately $1 million each. The American THAAD system costs $13 million per interceptor. Israel is spending 4 to 26 times more to defend each engagement than Iran spends to attack. Multiply that across 80 waves and 26 days, and the budget becomes unsustainable. A senior Israeli defense official said it publicly. Even if production is ramped up now, what you're firing today is what was ordered 2 or 3 years ago. The United States burned through roughly 14% of its entire THAAD stockpile in the first 2 weeks alone. Current production delivers approximately 12 THAAD interceptors per year. Replenishing what was consumed in 14 days would take between 3 and 8 years. More than a year of American missile production, spent in half a month. And here's what the 92% interception rate is hiding. Iran has fired around 440 ballistic missiles since February 28. 8% get through. 8% of 440 is roughly 35 warheads reaching populated areas. 35 unintercepted impacts across 26 days. Many of those carry cluster munitions, warheads that split apart at altitude and scatter dozens of individual bomblets across several square kilometers. Iron Dome has to chase each fragment separately. A senior Israeli brigadier general was asked about the system's capability against those cluster warheads. His answer, 3 words. Better than nothing. That is not confidence. That is a system being asked to do more than it was ever designed to handle. And the damage doesn't stop at Israel's borders. Because this war just reshaped the global economy. Before the first strike, Brent crude traded at roughly $72 per barrel. It briefly topped $100. Then hit $119.50 at its March peak. Goldman Sachs said it could average $98 through March and April, with $110 as the upside risk in a worst-case disruption scenario. Why? Because Iran effectively closed the Strait of Hormuz. 20 million barrels of oil per day. 20% of all global seaborne crude. 20% of global liquefied natural gas. 50% of the world's urea and sulfur exports. All of it, through one narrow waterway. Tanker traffic collapsed by 70%. 2,000 vessels and 20,000 seafarers stranded at sea. Iran's new supreme leader, who replaced his assassinated father on March 8, made his position clear in his very first public statement. The strait stays closed. Combined oil output from Kuwait, Iraq, Saudi Arabia, and the UAE dropped by at least 10 million barrels per day by mid-March. The International Energy Agency called it the largest supply disruption in the history of the global oil market. The IEA's executive director used 5 words, the greatest global energy security challenge in history. American gasoline climbed past $4 per gallon nationally. California broke 5 pesos. Gulf states that depend on the strait for over 80% of their food imports saw 70% of those shipments disrupted by mid-March. Qatar Energy declared force majeure on LNG contracts after strikes knocked out 17% of its export capacity, with repairs estimated at 3 to 5 years. Trump demanded allies send warships. 22 nations met to discuss it. Zero committed forces under fire. And on the same day Trump said Iran was, from a military standpoint, finished, the IRGC launched Wave 80 and put missiles into central Tel Aviv, Bnei Brak, and Kiryat Shmona, simultaneously striking American bases in Kuwait, Jordan, and Bahrain. That is not a finished military. And it's not just Iran firing. Since March 2, Hezbollah has added more than 3,500 missiles and drones from the north. Over 1,000 people killed in Lebanon. Nearly 3,000 wounded. Israel is now moving to seize everything south of the Litani River. To France. One defense system. Droning out of interceptors. These wars started with a declared objective, collapse the Iranian government. 26 days in, that government is still standing. The missiles are still arriving. The shelters are now on the target list. Iran is operating under a 23-day total internet blackout, the longest digital shutdown in the country's history, with connectivity at 4% of normal levels. But the missiles keep flying anyway. The IRGC isn't just surviving this war. It is adapting. Accelerating. Escalating. 35 unintercepted warheads. 26 days. 80 waves. The interceptors are depleting faster than any factory on Earth can replace them. The shelters that were supposed to keep civilians safe are now coordinates on a target list. The strait that powers the global economy, still closed. No timeline for reopening. The stated goal of this war was to end the Iranian threat. But after 26 days, the only thing that's ended is the illusion that any defense can hold indefinitely against an enemy willing to fire forever. Wave 80 has landed. Wave 81 is already in the air. What does Wave 100 look like? If you've made it this far, you already know how serious this is. Subscribe, hit the like button, and drop your thoughts below. Do you think there's still a path to a negotiated ending, or has this war already gone past the point of no return? Watch the next video on screen. See you there.